Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video we are going to discuss about how we can configure a private endpoint. So what we are going to do in this particular video, we are going to create a virtual network and we are going to create a virtual machine, and on that virtual machine we are going to install Azure Storage Explorer, and we are going to create a storage account. Then we will create a private endpoint for a blob storage. So let's see how we have to configure the private endpoint for storage account. You can use like SQL database, like for any services you can utilize which is support. So basically it will provide you a secure communication between your source resource to destination resources, and it will go through a kind of a tunnel. It will not go through over the public IP or Microsoft backbone network, so it is completely secure. Let's quickly move to the Azure portal. So I'm on my Azure portal. I have a virtual network called test-bnet, and as part of this virtual network, I have a subnet called default. So we are going to create a one storage account as part of this subnet, and then we will create a private endpoint, and then we will do a testing. So let me quickly go to my storage account. So the name I'll provide here, some demo name, I'll just copy it if it's available. And the reason I'm choosing the Central India region. And replication, let me choose LRS. Rest all the fields I'm keeping default, just I'm adding a networking here. So in networking, what I will do, I will disable the public access because we want to use a private endpoint. So we don't want any kind of public access on this particular storage account. Now let me hit on the view and create. It is going to take couple of minutes to create the storage account. Meantime, its deployment is in progress. I'll go to my virtual machine, which I have created, the simple step which I have followed to create a virtual machine. And this virtual machine is also part of a virtual network, which we have like test-bnet. So this is the public IP address. Let me quickly connect to the virtual machine. Okay, it's not copied. So this is the Azure Storage Explorer which I have installed it. So this is some simple MSI file which you can download from the browser. So let me show you. I have already downloaded the Storage Explorer Windows file because I am using Windows OS. Now what I will do, I'll try to connect a storage account here. As of now we don't have any storage account here. So let's quickly add a storage account which we have created. So let me go to my storage account. Let's see if deployment is completed. Okay, deployment is succeeded. So I'll copy the name of storage account here. And I'll connect to the storage account. So here I will use storage account, connection method, account name and key. So key, access key we are going to use. So let me quickly put the name, display name and account name, and access key we will get it from here. So I'll just click on show and just copy the storage key here, access key, sorry, and I'll paste it here. Next and connect. So you can see we have attached the storage account which we have created. Now if we want to access a blob storage, blob container we will get a authentication error because there is no connection which we have stabilized between a storage account and a virtual machine. And if similarly if you want to access a file share, again we will get a error, authentication error. So what I will do, I will create a private endpoint for blob container, because in service endpoint we create a service endpoint at service level, but in private endpoint we have to create a endpoint at resource level. So what I will do here, I'll go to networking and I'll go to private endpoint. I'll hit on create and I'll name it here private endpoint 1, and you can see the network interface card it's going to create for us. If I'll go to my PPT here, you can see the network interface card illustrated here. So the private IP address of this virtual machine, or virtual network, will get the same private IP on this storage account as well, because on this particular NIC card. So suppose the virtual machine IP is 10.0.0.4, then the NIC will get IP address of 10.0.0.5. So in that case, the communication is happening to storage account based on the network interface card. So there is no public endpoint no public IP address of this storage account which we are going to use. That's why it is completely secure. Let me click on resources. So now you can see here target sub resources. So here we have a different sub resources: blob, table, queue, file. So based on your requirement you can choose. So I'm going to use blob storage here. Next we will choose a virtual network and I'll click on next DNS and I'll simply hit preview and create. So this private endpoint will take couple of minutes. So meantime we'll wait. Once the deployment is completed, then we will see if we are still able to connect to the blob container or not. So now deployment is completed. If I'll see the deployment details, we can see there are multiple resources which has been created as part of this private endpoint. We can see here the private DNS has been created, virtual network link and DNS shown. There are multiple resources which has been created as part of this private endpoint. So now what I will do, I'll quickly go to my storage account and I'll go to networking, and here we can see a private endpoint which is connection state is approved. Now I'll go back to my virtual machine and I'll try to refresh the connection. So now you can see we can see a container called log now. If we want to create one more container, let's try to create one demo container. So demo container is also created. If we want to verify, I'll just quickly go to my containers here and we can see a demo container is created. Now this private endpoint we have created at resource level. It means we cannot access any other services. If we try to access file share, we will get an error. So you can see this is not authorized. Similarly for queue and table storage as well, because the private endpoint we create at a resource level and service endpoint we create at a service level. So when we created a service endpoint in my previous video, then what happened, we will have access all the sub resources which is blob, file, queue and table. But in private endpoint we have only access for a blob container, because we have created a private endpoint for blob container. If we have created for file, then we can access the file share as well. And so that's how basically a private endpoint work, and you can use private endpoint for SQL database and other resources as well, which is support. So I think it's clear how basically private endpoint work. So that's all for today. See you in next video. Thank you so much.